Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt here at the Christ School of Theology. We're talking today about Leibniz. We've talked a bit about monads. We're ending these series of lectures with some thoughts here. For Leibniz, a substance is active, okay, insofar as it has distinct perceptions, and then passive insofar as it has confused perceptions. Now he comes to this view later in life. This is his mature view on this, and it's very famous with Leibniz. Perception is just confused conception. That's a famous line. I remember in graduate school, this was what Kant was supposed to take care of, this problem in Leibniz, that perception is but confused conception. For Kant, they're very different things, of course. But all things here are continuous. And so we have a continuum of clarity of perceptions down to confused conceptions, and of distinct active perceptions down to confused, passive perceptions. Passive, confused perceptions. Now it seems that the monads that have more distinct perceptions have control of those monads that have less distinct perceptions. So the animal duck has more distinct perceptions than the monads that comprise it, that are part of the duck's feathers or whatever. And at this point, everything's made up of monads. I think that Voltaire was one who talked about, you're asking me to believe that there is in this cup of urine. I think he says that. All of these, monads where there's, little souls in this cup of urine. Well, if we understand what Leibniz is saying, it's not that absurd, right? He does claim that one monad is dominant over another, when within the former, there are reasons for the actions of the latter. So the more distinct we are in our thinking, the more we understand the reasons why things are what they are, and the more we understand that the reasons for the other is found within the former, assumably. Now, of course, he's dealing with the distinction that was being battered around at the time. That is the distinction between truths of reason and truths of fact. And of course, we find this in Locke. We find it in Locke. We find it over in Berkeley and Hume. Leibniz says that an idea is true when its notion is possible, and false when it includes a contradiction. Now, again, this is very mathematical kind of thinking. In mathematics, if something is impossible, the negation of the thing that is impossible obtains. Similarly here, an idea is true when its notion is possible, because the possibility of the thing entails its actuality. Okay, now we could talk about that a long time. We know a priori that a notion is possible if it can be resolved into component notions, each of which is possible. We know a priori it is possible through experience, because anything experienced is a posteriori possible. Okay, an experienced thing we don't know a priori, but we know that a thing that is experienced is possible. Therefore, its denial cannot be contradictory. Therefore, it is. Kind of a long way about things, but that's basically where he's going. So he doesn't make this huge distinction like we're going to find in Hume, for instance, or Kant. Truths of reason are resolvable into primitives or identities, and truths of fact cannot be discovered through a finite process of analysis in the same way. But again, because of the predicate and notion theory, there is no deep fundamental distinction here. Leibniz is a rationalist in holding to innate ideas and the principle of sufficient reason, of course. And if you think about it, I mean, Locke talks about, that we come tabula rasa, right, as clean slates. Well, if we came as clean slates, then according to the identity of indiscernibles, we'd be the same guy. If you came as a clean slate and I came as a clean slate, we'd have the same set of properties, so we'd be the same person. So you can't come as clean slates. That's a very interesting little argument. So you have to come with innate ideas that individuate one from the other. If you're created by God, there's going to be some difference between you. While experience can explain the source of contingent truths, it cannot explain necessary truths. And, of course, our innate ideas are such that the mind has a special affinity towards necessary truths. Now he makes a distinction between perception and apperception. He says that monads have their place in the hierarchy determined by whether they are capable of sensation or reason. He says, quote, "It is good to distinguish between perception, which is the internal state of the monad representing external things, so-called external things, right? And apperception, which is consciousness or the reflective knowledge of this internal state, something not given to all souls, nor at all times to a given soul. So the duck out in my pond has perception, but it doesn't have apperception. What makes human beings special is their capacity for apperception, to formulate a conception of their self. There is a continuum of monads, and so we work up. Animals are not mere machines like they are for Descartes. Oh, they don't have minds, so they're mechanical. That's how Descartes talks about this. But sophisticated monads, like dogs, they come up higher than my duck on this continuum of monads. And these sophisticated monads, like my dog or maybe the gorilla, have minds that are much more active than these monads down below. Now, of course, at the pinnacle of these monads is human monad. Are human monads, right? Okay, quickly. Very famously, Leibniz gives an argument for the existence of God called the ontological argument. It's very simple. It really builds on the other ontological arguments. God is a being having all perfections. And he says a perfection is a simple and absolute property. And existence is a perception. Okay. So if existence is part of the essence of a thing, then it is a necessary being. If existence is a part of the essence of a thing, then it is a necessary being. Now here's the critical one. If it is possible for a necessary being to exist, then a necessary being does exist. And it is possible for a being to have all perfections, therefore a necessary being exists. And I want to leave you with this, and we'll come back one more. I didn't get it done. We have to have one more lecture on Leibniz. I'll be right back, but I want you to look at this. He's moving from the possibility of God, right? It's possible for a necessary being to exist. Then a necessary being does exist. To the existence of a necessary being. Now this seems totally crazy. How can you move from the possibility that God exists to the necessity of God existing? We'll disambiguate this in a moment. I'll be back. I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt at the Institute of Lutheran Theology. It's Christ School of Theology. One more lecture on Leibniz. Thank you.